At the end of my last video, when I promised a match review between the United States and Costa Rica, internally I was asking myself, what am I getting myself into? Because when I hear the words Gold Cup quarterfinal between the USA and Costa Rica, I almost fall asleep hearing that. And going into this match, I was almost thinking I was watching one of those how long until you fall asleep kind of challenge videos. Because usually that's what these games kind of turn into when we get into the knockout rounds between two teams that aren't super technically gifted. But I was actually pleasantly surprised in kind of how the match went. But kind of getting into the first half, I was pretty disappointed. And disappointment's going to be a word I use with the U.S. a lot today. And I think if you're a USA fan or just an observer of that match and you thought that the USA thoroughly deserved that match, you'd be lying to yourself. Because the first half especially was just filled with so many kind of individual errors. And it took 13 minutes for Max Arfson to give away a penalty. It was kind of one of those penalties where he kind of kicks the leg out of somebody else when his leg's in the air. So, it's sometimes a little bit of a dodgy penalty, but in this case, it 100% was. And Costa Rica deservedly goes up 1-0. And from then on, you were kind of expecting a USA response. You didn't really get one. Malik Tillman ended up drawing a penalty about 30 minutes into the night. And it's one of those kind of FIFA penalties where, he gets the ball on the edge of the left box. He crosses it in. But after that cross, he kind of got cleated in the back of his leg, which obviously hurt. But it was so far away from the action. I asked myself, is this really deserving of a pin? But I guess ball don't lie, because ultimately Tillman smacked the ball off the post. USA stayed down 1-0. But without the USA really creating much chances, they're kind of gifted a little bit of a goal in the 41st minute, because Costa Rica was designed to play the super kind of narrow defense, so it allowed Arfson to kind of head up the left flank and essentially be a left winger. He got the ball with acres of space, crossed it into Diego Luna, who took a very heavily deflected shot, but it went past Keylor Navas, and kind of out of nowhere, the USA tied the first half 1-1. It wasn't necessarily deserved from either side a lead, so I guess 1-1 is fair, but I certainly would have said that the USA were pound for pound the worst team. It didn't take long into the second half for me to start liking what I was seeing a little bit more, because just 2 minutes in, Malik Tillman and Patrick Adjumong did a great job of setting up Max Arfson thanks to some 1-2 combinations at the edge of the box. They set up Arfson in an acute opportunity against Keylor Navas, a tight angle. He ended up slotting it past Navas. 2-1, the United States go up just 120 seconds into the second half. And so at this point, you're assuming the United States are going to kind of put their foot on the throat and make it 3-1, 4-1 in favor of the U.S. But ultimately, it can never be that simple. When I look at Pochettino, and I have some things I like, but one of the things that really irks me the most, this Pochettino style of play, it essentially relies around his forward three, a left wing, striker, and right wing. They're all kind of set narrow to each other, and their back is always turned closer to goal. And they're also more centralized in the middle of the pitch, more towards the midfield rather than the opposition box. And in many cases, the United States creates some really good chances off this, because with these narrow spacings, it allows for some really good passing opportunities, some quick 1-2s. And when players are kind of on it, it can make for some really pleasing football. But on days like this, and I think on days in the future, this system will get caught out relatively easily, because what Costa Rica kind of realized was that if they could just muddy things up in the midfield, they'd be able to neutralize any kind of U.S. attack, because that USA front line is never going to try and dart past you. So Costa Rican defenders will always have their player right in front of them, the man they're marking right in front of them, never coming behind them. So it made things pretty easy for most Costa Rican defenders on the day. And ultimately, when Costa Rica kind of figured this out around the 50th minute, from then on, they honestly deserved to win the game. They got a deserved equalizer 71 minutes in. Carlos Mora over on the right side of the box neatly dribbled in between two USA defenders, took a quick shot. It was parried right back out to him. He crossed it into the middle, and in front of a wide open goal, Costa Rica ties the night 2-2. 12 minutes later, in the 83rd minute, another beautiful shot was taken by Costa Rica. It was slapped off the post. Costa Rica could have won the game right there at 3-2, but the USA riding their luck. And from then on, Costa Rica then decided to step back a little bit. So for the last 5 or 6 minutes or so, the USA were creating opportunities, but I think it's key to note that the only reason this stuff was happening was almost because Costa Rica was allowing them to kind of play how they wanted to. And ultimately, at this point of the Gold Cup, up until the final, there's no extra time. So after the 90 minutes, it goes straight to penalties. And that's ultimately what we ended up with. And what it was, a really messy penalty shootout. Eventually, Matt Freese came out on top. Matt Freese, a USA kind of stand-in goalkeeper. Usually, we would have expected a Matt Turner, but I think Pochettino for this tournament wanted to test out what different goalkeeping options looked like. Not anything against Turner. I just think that this was a low-stakes opportunity for Freese to kind of get in there, and he did a fantastic job. He saved 3 penalties. One was down the middle, which is always one of the more impressive penalties to save. But even in that penalty shootout, the USA just never looked that confident. It was kind of Freeze was almost creating that confidence for the US. And it was fortunate enough that Costa Rica just wasn't really there either, because this should be a big warning sign to the US, because they could have lost this game. Maybe they deserved to lose this game. He certainly didn't deserve to win it. I think when you kind of look pound for pound and manager for manager, what team played better, the clear answer has to be Costa Rica. There were good performances from the U.S. Freeze, as I mentioned, 3 penalty saves. Diego Luna, I think, did a really good job. I think he's emerged as a potential, not starter, but a potential bench piece for the 26th World Cup. Malik Tillman, someone who carried PSV Eindhoven towards the end of last season. He's done a great job thus far. But overall, it's just this USA team is still very clearly lacking something, and I think it goes far beyond the players. I think if you threw Timothy Weah, Ricardo Pepi, Christian Pulisic up there, these problems would still persist. I do think it's much more structured and it's a much more tactical issues. That's what's really hurting the starting 11 of whoever Pochettino fields. And so I think that's going to be a massive problem. I think the USA, I don't think they'll be caught out against Guatemala. That game's on the second. But against Mexico, assuming Mexico beats Honduras, I believe, in their semifinal, the USA could be in a lot of trouble. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how that game pans out, if Pochettino kind of changes his system or kind of what goes on there. But anyway, I appreciate all the continued support, guys. My last video did really, really well, so I'm really thankful for that. And I'll talk to you all soon. God bless.